Hello and welcome to Artists Soar. This is a podcast for artists by 3 artists. We discuss all aspects of being artists, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The goal of each podcast is to provide solutions so artists can focus on their creativity and soar above. I'm Rachel Harshenko.
Jules McCullough.
Stephanie Weaver.
Freedom isn't the ability to say yes. It is the ability to say no. Today on this episode, we actually are joined by Pod Sisters, as we so joyfully call ourselves. And we're going to be talking about the ability to say no. So you guys, really quick, can we go around and introduce ourselves? I'm Rachel Harshenko.
Awesome. My name is Jessica Libor, and I a studio and my studio, and I also have I run a gallery called Era Contemporary, and then I also do coaching for artists from the Visionary Artist Salon, and I'm based out of Pennsylvania.
Awesome. Welcome, Katrina.
Hi, I'm Katrina Berg. I live in Midway, Utah, up in the mountains. I'm also a painter, an oil painter, and I'm just happy to be here. These ladies are amazing.
Thank you, guys.
And then we have Julie and Stephanie. And we normally start out by talking about what we are working on. What have you guys been working on?
Well, I have been working on I've been working on a painting of a horse. I got a commission while I was in Ireland, and I've been working on this painting of this gentleman's horse, and his name is Louis, and he's this beautiful white steed, and it's an oil painting. And so that's what I've been working on.
Awesome. I can't wait to see that, Jessica.
I know. Neither can I.
Totally.
What about you, Katrina? We've already been oohing and awing over your pictures in the background.
I'm working. Oh, thank you. I'm working on more big pieces for my solo show. So that's my big thing. But believe it or not, I have a commission of horses as well. So that'll be really fun. We'll have to do a side by side, Jessica, because our styles are so different. So that's always fun.
When is your show, Katrina?
It's not till the spring, but I've been having panic attacks that I won't be ready. So I'm working my little tushy off over here.
Well, that's awesome. That's always good. You'll have some great pieces in there, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Stephanie, what have you been working on?
Yeah, I've got about 3 commissions I'm kind of working through. And I just had to get up and let the cat out because she was meowing. So, just we're working on that and teaching oil painting, and my classes are growing. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
Loving life.
What are you doing, Julie?
So I'm still working on more holiday pieces for some of these challenges one of the challenges I'm hosting, a challenge that I'm joining, and getting excited because next week my advent calendar comes out. So
I know you worked hard on that.
Yes, I'm really excited.
That's such
awesome.
a fun thing. It is such a fun thing. Yeah.
Where will the advent calendar be, Julie?
It'll be on my website. So if you get my newsletter, you should have gotten one today with the announcement of it. And then there'll be one that goes out on the 1st as well.
Very cool. That's such a cool idea. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm actually working on a couple of commissions. My kids have wanted me to do a couple of paintings of their pets. So I've been working on that. So that's fun. So topic of today, saying no. So do you guys make a habit of saying no, or are you guys people pleasers?
Ooh.
I have a couple of thoughts about this. Just to start us off. Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is that we only have so many hours in the day, and we only have so much energy during the day that we can devote to things that we commit to. And so it's a finite amount of energy and time that we're dealing with. So depending on our goals, like our personal and artistic goals, we literally can't say yes to everything. But even more so than that, what are the things that we are saying yes to that aren't actually moving us in the direction of where we ultimately want to go, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing that came to mind.
Interesting thought process on saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just all goes back to time management, really.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, if you're blocking out or scheduling out your time, then you know what energy and time you have available. But I like the energy part that you added in there, because that's so true. You may have 8 hours of work time, but you may only really have energy for 6.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that goes against marketing and sales. So marketing and sales tell you to say yes and figure it out later. Even if you don't know when you're going to do it or when it's going to happen, you figure it out later. You always say yes to the customer and figure it out later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As an implementation person, back when I was like project management and the salespeople doing that, it really ticked me off.
Yes, exactly.
They made all those promises, and to me as the implementation going, that's not really possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think for me, like saying no has not really been too big of a problem. The one time that really kind of came to mind when we were talking about this subject is when I said no, it was because it didn't follow with my why. And the funny thing with that is it took me a week of preparing. So what had happened is there was like a mayor or something of some town here in Alabama that requested that I attend their like art festival thing. And, and I told my mom about it, and she's, "Oh, that's awesome. You got to do it. You got to do it. It's the mayor." And all this. And so I was initially drawn to, I think the glamour, if you want to call it that, of the mayor asking for me. And so
what was for you to do?
Just to be at the show. Have my artwork at the show.
Oh, okay.
And I'd never heard of the show. And then I asked one of our friends, Jim Solomon, if he had ever heard of it. He's like, no. And so I'm sitting there thinking, this can't be a very big show then. And I didn't exactly enjoy shows at that time. At that point, I was trying to grow the art business side. That was my why. Art business side, the oil painting side. I wasn't interested in outside shows, but I started going down that path of, okay, they asked for me specifically. I've always wanted to be like the, what is it called? Sought after artist and all that other stuff. And so it was probably about 2 days before, and I didn't have any support or help to go to it and help set up and, be there with me. And then I just kind of sat down one day and I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't care. and as soon as I made that decision, I was just like, this huge weight was lifted off, because it's not something I wanted to do. And while it was flattering, I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. And I got to focus on what was important to me. So
yeah, that's interesting, because I do think people tend to be like, oh, let's get an artist here. Let's have an artist help us with this and that. And we have to ask ourselves, just like you said, Stephanie, is it part of my why? Is this the purpose? And then just like Jessica said, is this helping me get to where I want to be? Is this moving the needle in the direction that I actually want to be in? I'm definitely, I used to be a yes person. And I had a friend tell me that when I was in graduate school. She's like, you're totally a yes man or yes, whatever. And I was a little offended, and I went home and had a heart to heart with myself. And I'm like, oh, she's totally right. And if I really want to like accomplish the things I want to do, I'm going to have to start making some harder decisions. So from then on, I realized that I really had to like be more intentional. And then what was interesting is I would have artists, this is a while ago, but I was constantly, the biggest thing that people would say is, how do you do it all? And I was like, but I don't, we only wash the dishes once a day. My kids do chores. They do their own laundry, blah, 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 all these things. And, but they kept asking me. And then I thought, okay, if they're still asking me, maybe I'm still doing too much. Isn't that interesting? And so it was another aha for me. I was like, no, I need to be even more intentional about what I'm doing and say no more than I'm saying yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a big aha moment.
And okay. Exactly. And you've got like a family, Katrina. It's not like, when you said kids, you really have to split your time between being an artist, an entrepreneur, a wife, a mother, friend, everything. So that's really a big aha moment.
Yeah. And I think that we all, like you say, like we all have to, whether we have one child, two children, and a pet, we all have family members. We're aunts, like Jessica's an aunt and she runs a gallery and all these things. Everybody has so many things. I don't know anyone. I haven't met any artist that isn't like trying to constantly make choices or juggling so many things. Yeah. And I think that's part of it is we do look at each other and say, oh, they're doing everything. They're so amazing. But we're all choosing different things. And I think that's really important to recognize.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that saying no is just another way of having boundaries in your own life and boundaries around like your art and what you want to do. Like I have an example. So for Era Contemporary, I used to do like 5 shows a year for Era Contemporary. And I quickly realized that was my full-time job when I was doing 5 shows a year. And then I noticed that like my artwork was suffering because all of my time was like going into communicating with the artists and like uploading the art and planning things. And I realized that I want to primarily be an artist. And then with the gallery, do like at the most 2 shows a year so that I can focus on like my own path as an artist while still like retaining the gallery. So yeah, I just realized that I had to say no. I couldn't do it all, and right. I think that people have a hard time saying no because they want to be very optimistic that they can do it all. And it's like, they think that they're superhuman, but you quickly realize that you are human and you only have a certain amount of like time and energy to do some things well. So you don't want the excellence to suffer in what you do, right? Yeah. And if you commit to too much, then you spread yourself too thin and the quality goes down in whatever you do because you don't have the bandwidth to actually make it as it should be.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Mm-hmm. That's so true.
Yeah. Actually, I have a little story. So I know an artist. I'm not going to say his name, but he's very famous and his work constantly sells out in like New York and LA. And he was talking about when he was rising as a artist and he was also in a band. And he was talking about how he kind of had to decide what he wanted to do because he didn't have enough bandwidth, no pun intended, to do like both his art at a really high level and his music at like a really high level. Mm-hmm. So he had to decide. And he said he went with his art because it was a stronger passion for him. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you do have to make those hard choices.
Yeah, you definitely have to make the choices and you have to understand yourself and know yourself. In order to say no, I think is a big perspective. it kind of goes back to Jessica, your earlier comment about how much energy you can exert to finish something. But I think it's more than just the energy that you have available to you. It's more of what you have inside you to give as well.
And Julie and Jessica, when you talk about energy, and Julie, what you were talking about just there, what you have to give. One of our artists in the Positive Painters, Julie Knowles, she told me about this concept of spoons. Like, imagine you have 10 spoons a day, and that's your energy. And every spoon, you're feeding somebody else, or your spoon, you feed you. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you're negative spoons, you're giving too much. And right. So it's a way of visually, giving that idea of feeding other people, feeding them your energy. And yeah.
I was going to say, it's interesting you bring that up too, because that's what my mom used as an analogy when she was fighting cancer. She's like, I can either take a shower today because I only have 5 spoons available to me because my body's fighting something. I can either take a shower today and use 1 to 2 spoons, or I can just clean myself up and use that spoon for something else, like going to the store or whatever, because if she just did one thing, her energy was zapped. And I love that spoon analogy. Mm-hmm. I think it has a lot of weight in more than just battling a disease.
Yeah. Yeah. Really strong visualization too.
Yes.
And whether it be spoons, but I love that because you're feeding others. Like, it's something living in you, your energy. So I love that.
And something I've actually been interested in, because I do want to say yes to a lot of things. And I want to say yes to myself when I want to do something too, So I've been interested in, how do I increase my energy every day? And it's something I've been looking into. And I've actually found a couple of kind of unusual ways that have really increased my energy. So do you hear them?
Yes.
Yeah, we need more energy too.
Yes. Share the love.
Okay. So the first one is it's trampolining. So I got this little trampoline, and so if you trampoline, oh my goodness, I had no idea like how much energy this would give me. When I trampoline in the morning for like 15 minutes, like I put on some like great music and I just like trampoline, like a mini trampoline,
Yeah.
I am so awake by the end of those 15 minutes, and I am so energized. I feel like I could like take on the whole world, and it just turns me into an Energizer bunny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's good for your lymph system, and it gets everything moving. And so there's, and then
is that the first thing you do when you get up in the morning, Jessica?
No, it's not the first thing that I do, but after I do like my morning rituals, then I'll, if I have time, I'll do that. But I've been doing it for like 2 weeks now since I got my trampoline, and I've accomplished so much more than I usually do, because I don't know, it just really does something.
Yeah.
The other thing that I have been doing is, I'm part of like a dance group, and like, when I go to like a dance, it really feeds my energy for some reason. I think it's both the social aspect of it and also the movement of the body and stuff. And it really, energizes me for like a couple of days afterwards. So those are 2 little things that have helped me increase my bandwidth and because I think that half of energy is like being like excited about doing the thing. Because if you're really excited about something, you'll probably like find a way to do it,
Yeah.
And that goes along with it gives you so much energy because you're feeding yourself. You're feeding your soul. You're feeding yourself what you are needing. And in return, your body is re-energized.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and another thing along those same lines too is I don't know if you've heard of those headstand stands, but mine's over in the corner there, and I just pulled it out again to start using. But when my energy feels low during the day, I'll just go do a headstand to get my blood flowing differently, and it works wonders on just like, I don't know, just clearing your thoughts and recentering where and what you should be doing.
I have never heard of that before. I'm going to have to look into that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun to do. I was like, I can't do a headstand anymore. Like I'm a little too old for that. But this
does it have a cushion that you put your head in?
Yeah.
Nice. I'll admit I've been avoiding headstands for a while for that reason.
So it lays like this.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's called Feet Up.
Feet up.
Cool.
How interesting.
I love that little thing, but really just it gets your blood flowing. And there's all these different types of headstands that you can do and stuff, but I don't get fancy. I just go and do that, and then I have a new outlook on what I'm going through.
Wow. Yeah. I guess
That's awesome.
the world upside down, you literally see things differently.
Completely different.
Yeah.
But I haven't.
Getting back to saying no,
Yeah.
it sounds like it really comes back to, as Julie says, how much white space you have in your day, your bandwidth, your energy level. I kind of, relate it to how much charge do you have for the day?
Yeah.
Because you guys know if you are using an app all day on your phone, it's going to go down a lot more. So if you're putting energy into something that you feel like you're chugging away at, I think it takes more of that away.
Yeah.
But I feel like we all have a pretty good boundaries. And I think it was Jessica or Katrina that said setting boundaries. And I think that is so true about our lives that, you don't want to veer too far left or right. You want to keep it between the ditches, And so one way to do that is your why. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing from everyone?
Yeah.
Like Jessica, you're wanting to do more for your artwork. So you were taking less shows. And I love that you, and Katrina, you even said it, being intentional with your time and your energy and your artwork. And I love that. I think that's one thing that I'm going to take away is to be intentional with my time and my artwork.
Yeah.
So I think like the next question that I would have is what are some questions that you should ask yourself, or to marinate on each time something kind of comes up that you didn't necessarily plan for, but it's either an opportunity or it might not be. What things do you guys consider when saying yes or no?
What does your body say immediately?
I agree. I do the same
your gut?
thing. Yeah. What's in your gut? Do you feel like this is does it, like when Stephanie said that it lifted that burden when she finally said no, that's what I asked myself. Is this going to give me a burden? Like, do I feel weight thinking about this, about saying yes to this? Or do I feel like this is going to expand my experience? And it's usually once you ask yourself that, it's pretty obvious, right?
I think a good thing too is just to take time. Like, just say, well, that's an interesting opportunity. I'm going to think about it for a little while and I'll get back with you in the morning or whatever. Give yourself some time to mull over it. Don't say yes or no immediately, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing that we didn't talk about that I think is important to consider is how much energy is the client, not so much the work, but how much energy is the client going to zap from you? Because I know I've been in situations where I've had to say no to a project because I knew that client was going to suck all my time. It's like, in the corporate world, we joke about the PITA fee. Does this need a PITA fee, a pain in the blank fee?
Oh. I've never heard that.
I love that, Jules.
But, I think that's really important. If you're taking on a commission or, Rachel and I are doing a website or a graphics project or designing a mural or something, who am I doing this for? And what's my vibe with that client?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would even say if it's not a client, if it's like a gallery opportunity or some kind of like competition or something like that, do you vibe with the people who are involved, and how are those people treating you? Do you like the way that the relationship is going? Because every different organization has their own culture, and you want to always be treated with respect, and you want to always feel like there's this mutual respect and honor going on that's like both ways.
Yeah.
And sense that they feel that you are beneath them, or they're telling you what to do, or they're feeling like entitled or anything like that. You always have the power to say no and to walk away, because you have that power. You don't need to be treated like that. You can remove yourself from that situation.
Now, what if one of our listeners is hearing this and they're like, but I'm desperate to do some sort of work to grow my portfolio? What sort of advice would we give them?
To grow? Well, it depends on what they're trying to do. If you just want to grow your portfolio, you don't need anybody else to do that except for your paintbrush and you.
Yeah. I like that point. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to make money, then, I think it all starts with having standards for who you will take on as a client, as an artist as well. So you can never, I just don't like starting with like a desperate attitude. Like I'd rather take on like a part-time job so I don't feel desperate, and then have high standards for who I take on as a client.
Yep.
And I love that.
That's a very valuable piece of advice, Jessica. That's really good.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm loving that I'm hearing is, one of the advantages that we all have is probably our age. Our age has given us experience and the ability to say no and kind of reflect on these things. When I think about like a younger, and we're not old by any means, but when I think about like a 20-something-year-old who's coming into becoming an artist, and they see these opportunities, and their first thought is, well, what would happen if I don't do this? And it's that FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And so they start going down that path, and it might not be a bad thing. They're going to learn the hard way that this doesn't feed them. Mm-hmm. And from all of us, we kind of know what will feed us and what won't feed us, and what meets our why and what doesn't. So for those younger guys out there, much love to you. You got some experimenting to do to really figure out what feeds you and what doesn't feed you. And I guess for those guys, kind of thinking back to when we were going through that, did you guys have any aha moments back then as to like, oh my God, this is not going to work for me. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is something that you should always definitely say no to is an art scam.
Ooh, tell us about art scam. Tell us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you guys have gotten the emails like, dear, I'm looking at your works for my wife's anniversary.
Yes.
As a matter of importance, I need to know would you take a check? I mean, that's a scam, because what they do is they send you a check, and then they send you a check for too much, and then they ask you to send them back a check for the balance.
Right.
And then by the time you deposit the check, it takes like a day or two, and the check always bounces, and then you've sent them money. So anyway, that's a scam. So please don't ever do that. That's something you should always say absolutely no to. And you can kind of pick up like by the language of it.
Right.
It sounds like it's written really badly by somebody who, it just sounds like a scam. But if you have any doubt, please, post it on like an artist support group or something like that, like on Facebook, and get other artists input if you're not sure.
Yeah.
You can even copy the body of the email. I've done this. Copy the body of the email, stick it into a search engine, and see what pops up. And people will always be like, I got this email, or I got, and it's exactly word for word, or I'll put in the email address that it's coming from. But yeah,
they're always a scam if it's just kind of iffy language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it when
and
they
go with
like,
your gut.
well, I've got my wife's anniversary coming up, and what do you have between the $500 and $5,000 range?
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, okay, one, look at my website.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Sometimes that's what I do is I just reply and thank you for your interest. Here's my website. You can pay for it online. But I even stopped doing that. So another thing that we could say to people too is when you're first trying to figure out what is important to say yes to, like where are the places that you need to focus your energy on for your business? I would say give it a timeline. Like Rachel already mentioned, timing and waiting for timing. Like tell yourself, I'm really going to go all in for 6 months, or I'm going to go all in for a year, and say yes to as many opportunities as I can. And then the end of that time frame, I'm going to evaluate how it's going. Do I need to keep going for another 6 months? Or do I just need to start saying, okay, out of these 8 shows that I did this year, these 3 were my top 3. So I'm going to keep those. And I might still say yes to a few while I'm figuring it out, but I'm going to already filter out the ones that I know were not like meant for me. Right.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea, especially for new people.
Yes. Because you have to trial and error, I think, to a certain point to learn what to say no to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes you don't know how it will be for you. And then if it's awesome, then, you'll want to do it again. But sometimes opportunities will surprise you, and you'll you'll do something, and then you'll sell a bunch of artworks or something. You'll meet a bunch of clients, and you wouldn't have thought that would happen at this particular thing. So, yeah.
Right.
And I think that's another benefit of saying no is that if our general answer is no, and something comes up and we're like, I actually do have the energy to do this. I'm going to try this interesting, this once in a lifetime opportunity. And then when it pays out big, or, you realize that was really meant for you, then you're happy because that was the benefit of saying no to the other 10 things that year, so that you could say yes to the one that was really meant for you.
Yes.
Correct.
Good. So I love to talk about saying no around pricing and stuff like that. So when people ask you for really deep discounts, or, how to say no in those kind of awkward situations.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. I think for me, for a while, I did a studio sale at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. I think I did it for 3 years in a row, and it was in November, and it was a great time of year to do that. And so I would say, I don't discount this work because this is new, but at the end of the year, work that's much older will be on sale. All you need to do is get on my email list and see if that fits your needs better. And that way you're not compromising your latest, most progressed work for, somebody. But a lot of times for me, I'm just like, yep, this is my pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that, Katrina.
You just have to be confident in your work, I guess. And I like Katrina's idea. It's Well, I have a sale. I generally have a sale one or two times a year. So you can grab pieces then. But right now, this is the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't always used to be this way. So I've you guys know this. I've developed an art pricing calculator, and that art pricing calculator takes into account what my wholesale cost is versus my retail cost. And that way I know, the kind of the quote wiggle room that I have in order to make sure that I make an income that is actually sustainable. And so with that knowledge, if somebody asks for a discount, I'll go to like Katrina's, stance there where, this is a new piece. So no, this is the price, but if I've held on to it for a couple of years, then it'll go lean towards the wholesale cost because I just want it to be enjoyed by somebody else.
Exactly.
So I can show more work. And I look at it not necessarily like this is part of me. I don't look at it like that. This is a product that I created. The process is part of me. And what I put into it in imagination is part of me, but the end is a product. And so by doing that, I'm kind of able to release the emotional side of it. And again, I wasn't always that way. That's just something that's kind of,
and for me, I also remind myself that it's our job as artists to educate everyone around us about the value of artwork. And just last month, I had this cute couple that were here in my studio, and they were trying to decide between a couple big pieces. And the husband, he was like, how do you decide on pricing? And so I started telling them about price per square inch. And I actually told them, Stephanie, that you were writing a book. I'm like, when that comes out, I'll pass it on to you. But I just kind of told them how some artists do it. And I got down to the nitty gritty, and I showed them each inch costs this much. And it was only like so many dollars. Right. And so then when they think about it, they're like, oh, like, it just makes more sense. And I did the same thing for my sister. One time she bought a painting from a new artist, and she basically paid her like 11 cents a square inch. And when we figured that out, she was devastated. She actually felt really bad that she had devalued this artist's work so much, so sometimes it just takes perspective. But I think, Stephanie, your book is going to be amazing because it's going to give us another tool to help educate people on the time that it takes, all the energy it took for us to learn our process and our style. And then, of course, just the materials and all the things that are going to be in Stephanie's book, which will be so great just to be able to say, here's some things that really go into this.
Because when it's time and mastery. So the mastery level is what really determines the price. Because, you got Banksy. He can ask whatever he darn wants. And somebody else who can actually produce at the same level, but might take, 10 years to do what he's done. You can't ask for the same price, even if it's the same size. So it comes to the level of mastery with that. And I just had like another little brain fart about that. But sorry, I got a call. With the pricing of things, it's just you don't want to necessarily devalue your work. That's what it was. When somebody asked me, how long does this take you? It's taken me 20 years.
Yep.
Because that's how long it's taken me to master this. 20 years ago, it took me 8 to 40 hours to create this. Now it takes me 2. I don't need to tell them it took me 2 hours.
Yeah.
It took me 20 years of experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, guys. Well, it seems like we could talk a long time about the power of saying no.
Yes.
I think we have some really good bullet points for not only for me, but hopefully our listeners are taking that away. So if you guys, our listeners, have anything else that we haven't touched on, some ways that you say no or good ways that you find in saying yes, we would love to hear from you guys. And until next time.
Thanks for listening to Artists Soar.
A podcast for artists by artists. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at hello@artistsoar.com.
And be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts so you can get more of us and we can bring in some sponsors to help you and help us.